From ancient historical times right through to present day, all society at large have paid taxes. The concept of the common good and the undisputed legitimacy of the public and private authorities' use of the wealth gained from taxes have greatly changed over time. Without a doubt, some of the most important information that mankind has left us all comes from tax documents. It is precisely with these materials that historians such as Ángel Galán Sánchez and his team of researchers from Universidad de Málaga work with.
We are historians. We are curious to know how mankind lived in the past and exactly how their cultures worked. This is our common goal. Effectively, what we have intensively learned over the last 20 or 30 years is that there is no richer documentation that allows us more possibilities to explore memorabilia from the past with such precise reliability than fiscal documentation. Contrary to common belief, we do not only make balance sheets, do accounts and sums, and keep books. These things, of course, we do, but the ultimate goal of all historians is to do these things with exact certitude, while paying great attention to the finer details. What appears so abundantly in these fiscal documents is how many taxpayers and exactly who the inhabitants were in each community, how the land was split up, and what was the balance of power between the population. So prevalent is this information that if you were to ask me, taking into account the era in which we live in, what were the political and democratic roles back then, I can tell you that there is no better way of remembering the past than through fiscal documents. Let me give you an example. When a prince, a king, or even the city wanted or needed extra money and wanted to levy a charge on his subjects, it was necessary to ask them permission. To do this, they had to go to the courts or to the popular assemblies, be it in the 14th, 15th, 16th, or even 17th century. As a general rule, this was the means to subsidize times of war. What is of great significance to us is that when the king or whoever was in position of authority asked, for one reason or another, for the tax supplement, this gave the subjects, those who in the end would pay, the opportunity to make their desires known for change and improvements, or to do away with any injustices. In this negotiation, in this toing and froing of finance, under these fiscal agreements, in this game, what becomes clear is how the social models were made. What is also demonstrated is how the subjects sided with different lobbies, how they discussed the decisions to be made, how they related to their rulers, and how, in the end, the very same rulers had to take the community into consideration.
Appreciative of this reality, two scientific projects from Universidad de Málaga have pioneered a network of research teams to unite studies that are more directly related to the root of modern tax systems. Arca Comunes has integrated 9 different projects placed within 7 universities or public bodies, and there are nearly 60 researchers from a score of different centres whose coordination and main offices are to be found in this university.
In the projects that Málaga is working on, we are creating a database of medieval taxation with the purpose of organizing the research results and improving the system for search and access to documentary sources of all of the archives throughout Spain and all the data that these documents supply us with. The target is to provide the results of our documentary analysis through the database in a coherent and organized way for other researchers. This is a pioneer project which demonstrates the tremendous potential of technology innovation in the humanities field.
Catalan researchers have been studying the previously unknown and immense 14th and 15th century public debt market in the Crown of Aragon. In this public debt market, it was not only the noble, rich and powerful that participated in buying government bonds, but there were also shopkeepers, small traders and not very prosperous farmers. This was done in a way to ensure the future of their families and at the same time as a way to accelerate the commercial flow in view of the lack of currency.
o la actividad comercial que ante la falta de dinero físico.
Los investigadores navarros están desarrollando una importante labor editorial durante los últimos años.
Researchers from Navarre, for a number of years, have been conducting some important editorial work. They are publishing the financial records of the Royal Treasury of Navarre that go back to as early as 1259. Up to now, the results obtained are very significant. For such a well-defined territory, this information is essential to understand its characteristics, its toponymy, etc. It also sheds light on the development of public taxation and spending policies in small countries, and dismisses any previous conceptions of chaos and primitive procedures in the Middle Ages.
De descontrol o de procedimientos primitivos que podamos tener sobre la Edad Media.
Everyone has heard stories about Jews and money in medieval Europe. It is false that the Jews were only moneylenders or bankers, but what is true is the importance that they had as financiers and lessers of the king's taxes, which was huge in the Castile of the late Middle Ages, up until the moment of their expulsion. As opposed to what we thought before, so were the Jews after being forced to convert or abandon Castile. In the Kingdom of Granada, the converted Jews gained a special relevance as this region became a place of refuge for those who were being pursued in the Inquisition. It is thanks to them that the kings were able to raise as much money to face the amount of costs involved in the organization of the new Kingdom of Granada. Arca Comunis members have published over 500 research papers in journals and in national and international editorials over the past 5 years. It has also signed a scientific joint cooperation agreement with one of the most prestigious agencies in Europe, the Fiscal Studies Institute of Spain's Ministry of Economy and Finance. Despite the short period of time since Arca Comunis was established, it now currently represents the country's largest humanities network system.
Pero hay vida detrás de todo lo que le hemos contado. Podemos apreciar en los documentos.
But is there anything tangible behind everything that we've said? Is it possible to appreciate what we so pompously call everyday life in fiscal documents? Is it possible to perceive sentiments, emotions, misfortunes, or even follow someone's life history? Well, yes. One of the areas of interest that most present-day historians are interested in is the knowledge of how multicultural communities shape the lives of their citizens, or to be more precise, how each individual handled the daily problems that came from living in such an environment. Let me give you an example. Well, here we have a man who was not only Cadi, but also ulema from Granada. Now, this is a man who in his own right is a judge, a lawyer, an expert in his own religion, and in a sense of the word a religious leader, who decided to betray his own kind and turn coat when the Castilians conquered his land. This individual then made his fortune through collecting tax. As he could speak and write Arabic perfectly, and learned to speak and write Castilian, he was placed in charge of collecting the taxes from his own kind. As a result of this research, we have found out how many benefits he received, who he married, how many children he had, and we can completely reconstruct, thanks to these fiscal documents, a fascinating story. Bribery, deception, the embezzlement of public funds, fraud, and many other types of criminal activity that nowadays could be found in a serious newspaper, appears so remarkably well documented throughout the long life of this character, who sold his soul for a fortune by exploiting his own kind. I can assure you that the delicious details would be enough to delight any investigator, newspaper, or even the most scandalous tabloid.
De un periódico serio o de la más escandalosa de las revistas.